events are going out on the motherboard that renders it unusable. So they've been very robust and reliable, but I think we're seeing the early signs of them decomposing.
I just said these were replacement parts, you could back to life?
No, not replacement parts, new purchases.
New purchases.
Replacement.
These are new desktops?
Yeah, replacement, yeah.
So, there, and that's, what are we going to do if we don't replace them?
Well, we're hoping to just have it deferred to October town meeting, for capital items.
These
there
are
is gonna
small
be-
caps, these are not,
Yeah, but
We're
we've
talking about
removed the
percentage.
small cap from all budgets.
You know, I mean, with woodland inventory and the age of every equipment, there should be a plan in place to
We do have a
replace them on an annual
Yeah.
basis,
Yeah.
rather than wait until,
Well,
you know, get us into the position we were back in 2000.
I think in the previous slide, there was $26,000. It was based on 5-year replacement. 20% of it every 5 years, but that was kind of put on hold because of the budget pressures.
Mhm.
But I agree, we'll have to address that sooner or later. And that's a capital item, I think that.
Could you explain to me what we're doing for backup and disaster recovery today and where we're headed? Could you kind of,
Backups now, we have about 65, all our servers are backed up nightly. About 65% of our desktop PCs are backed up, and an evaluation was made which ones were critical, or which ones were management ones, department heads, those that had proprietary or specific data.
why isn't that data on the server under personal not personal, well, you know,
Well, we
secure files for each employee?
we have two basic data structures in our servers. One of them are work group data that the departments use, share. And the others is redirected My Documents, which people use to, instead of having their My Documents locally, they're on the server, they're backed
Okay.
up.
All right.
With our current version of the software, we can't redirect our Outlook share, our Outlook stores, and we can't our desktop or a lot of the things, which I think later on, once we upgrade our operating system, we will be able to.
All right, so we're not using Exchange Mail currently here.
That's another, I'm glad you brought that up. I think it was an omission, and my apologies for that. We don't have an Exchange server in-house. Exchange is Microsoft's trade name for their mail server. We outsource it. It's very inexpensive, but it's very feature poor. One of the things it has a spam filter that we have a hard time controlling, and we get people trying to send us emails that get rejected. We've had people from Department of Revenue get rejected. I think we submit.
You're talking about your internal Exchange server?
No, we don't have an internal.
Oh,
Exchange.
okay.
Well, we outsource it. So and we need to better comply with our email retention. If we had an Exchange server in-house, we could have that. We could also have shared calendars, room calendars, task lists, and these things that department heads are ripe to. They're in a position they could utilize that. They're asking for it. But I think that's a capital item that will.
Well, I think it's important. I'm not necessarily a big fan of Exchange in certain kinds of customer applications, but in this case, one thing it buys you is that everybody's email is backed up and can be retained because we have some obligations for retention. So, you know, maybe that should be put into the capital plan, whether it's, you know, this year or next year or 2 years out. There should be a plan to go in that direction, and that would eliminate the issue.
Right.
I'm a believer that the workstations should not have any data on them at the end of the day, right, that is important. It should all be on the server in secure folders for those people that would need private folders, and backed up. And then that leads into the next question is, I think it was still using tape backup?
Tape, I also do some disk-to-disk backups from another
Mhm.
server, just for redundancy. I do that nightly, and then I do a special backup on Friday that's for redundancy. And because,
So then what happens when a server goes down? What do we do?
well, hopefully our backup is good, and we'll be able to, depending on what makes it go down.
It crashes, it has to be replaced, or it takes 2 days to repair it and rebuild it.
We don't have an image backup of the servers. We would have to rebuild and restore data, which is not the best practice, but that's what we have right now. With our storage implementation that we have in place that we're going to be bringing online, I think we'll have that ability to image those things and those servers and be able to restore it in a much.
And the current backups are taken off-site, I take it?
Yes. Actually, there are in 2 locations. One stays, one goes, and then they
Yeah.
swap in.
There are services that are available today to provide backup and disaster recovery built in. So backup is done on a backup server. Copies of that are shipped to the cloud. And these devices run virtual machines that can actually, within an hour or 2, be configured to take over the job of a server, because they're doing image backups. Things that probably should be looked into going forward.
I agree with you totally. I think if we had a virtualized environment with redundancy, if one server went down, then it's seamless. To the user, they wouldn't even, it's really, there's some cost involved, but I think ultimately we minimize our risk. That's one of our goals.
Any other questions? Thank you
Thank
very
you.
much, Gene.
Thank you.
and
Thank you.
Thank you
Yes.
for all
Both
your
you.
work, hard work.
My pleasure. I enjoy it. I really do. Thank you.
Elizabeth, thank you for participating.
Thanks.
I think that wraps up our budget session. What's left
TA.
is
TA
TA
report, that's it.
report. Mr. Bellicose.
Just on my report, a couple updates. The contracts are in place for the work to begin on the timber harvest program. You remember the forestry committee was in and met with you a few weeks back. The work will begin this week. There are 40 acres which are impacted, and there's about 40,000 board feet of lumber that's going to be removed. Most of it is white pine. The good news for the town is there's revenue coming to us about $6,000. So it's not only providing a service in terms of keeping our forests healthy and well-managed, safe for flora and fauna, but it's also providing us with a nice chunk of change of $6,000 that can be put forward to good use, and it'll be considered to be general fund revenue, so I'm sure Liz will find a good place for it to be utilized going forward.
Just in relation to that,
Yeah.
forestry committee was looking for a portion of that to maintain some sort of program or training?
Right.
So we're
And
gonna talk with
it's-
them about it?
I did actually instructed them, the way to do that was to submit a request for town meeting, because that's the only way they can get to it.
Okay. And then, conservation. I don't know, maybe a small portion.
Maybe.
Some of that conservation land?
Yeah, I believe it is.
So, you know, they need the revenue.
It's not a bad source. It's actually a pretty creative idea.
Yeah, so,
Appreciate it.
I would think that should be considered.
Excellent. Thank you very much. Next on my list is the board received a letter from an attorney representing the owners of the real estate at Piccadilly Pub. I think the chairman touched upon it earlier. This site is being actively marketed for another restaurant location. Just to note that if the license is transferred in 2012, there'll need to be an action to void the license, the existing license by the board. You remember that the real estate and the restaurant were 2 separate operations.
It seems that the attorney was trying to imply that the town guaranteed the bank loan back when of the liquor license.
The liquor license generally is pledged.
Correct.
Pledged as an
Collateral.
asset of the corporation.
Yeah.
To get
In
a
this
loan,
case-
to get a loan, so it's a pledged asset. You know, fortunately, in our community, historically, licenses are just transferred readily. We have never actually seen a high value placed on a liquor license in the town of North Reading, like you would see in the
Yeah, to the
city of
point where
Boston, where
someone
people
else
would
is
go
on
out
the
and
list waiting for
purchase
one, yeah.
purchase the license from somebody and then come to us for a transfer and actually pay a handsome sum for the right to operate. So the value of the license having been pledged was negligible anyway. But
Well, I think they were just
But-
trying to call it to what.
but what it
intention.
is that it is a pledged asset of whatever the entity was to the bank, so the bank has some claim to
Some
it of
asset.
some sort.
Yep.
But the value of it is negligible.
I think they wanted to remind us that, if they find another restaurateur to
Yeah.
take over the property, they'd like to have the liquor
Well,
license.
I think the
Well, they
fact
need a
remains
new
that
one.
we still have licenses
license.
available
Yeah.
anyway.
Thank you, Selectman Delaney.
Right.
That's exactly the way we'd have to handle
Need
it.
a new license.
Yeah, you'd have to,
Need a new license.
yeah, it would be a new license, but
It could be
you'd,
a transfer,
boy,
unless there was a willing transfer between the current holder to somebody else,
Oh,
which we've
okay.
had before also.
No, but in this situation,
In this situation, we have a license
Bank's gonna-
available.
Right.
So we would just issue
And
it.
the letter claims that the
And suspend
premises
the
was
other one.
abandoned.
Right.
I mean, that was the whole point of the letter. But it was well-written, and I'm glad that the board had an opportunity to see it. You did see a copy of the language on the motion for town meeting. It's being reviewed by council, so,
Right.
And it's the standard template that MSBA and Sean had provided to me a few weeks back. So what we've done is simply inserted the numbers and included all the standard verbiage, and that's the easiest part of the job going into town meeting. So once it passes through town council, we'll provide it to the board. It'll be ready to go for town meeting as part of that packet.
Just a quick
when do
question.
you think you'll be hearing back from town council?
During the week, a couple days. It's pretty standard stuff. I'm sure he's gonna go through and look at it and see that it's identical to what the MSBA requires and very similar to what was in the warrant article itself. You'll remember, there was quite a bit of work amongst a number of different groups that put that original warrant article together. The good news is we don't need to do necessarily that level of work for the motion.
Yeah, I bring it up because there's been some chatter about, what the motion is really gonna say, and can the board go back and, charge, keep the tax rate up and all this stuff.
People are concerned.
essentially going to say what the project cost is, and ultimately, it's going to say what the maximum reimbursement rate is from the MSBA, and
That's what
the
it does
eventual,
say.
yeah, the
Still
eventual,
doesn't answer all the questions.
And that the amount that we borrowed is reduced by any funds that are received from the MSBA.
Is the actual amount to the penny going to be
We
quoted?
have to, I just received that information, and we do have to include that exact
Right.
dollar
Yeah.
amount within the motion. So that will be in the
And it's
motion.
that dollar amount is what the building committee voted,
Right.
So yes, we'll be ready to
what
go.
the state has approved, so.
Lastly, is I wanted to begin a discussion about the town's health insurance renewal for 2013. I did have an opportunity to meet with our consultant over the last week, and you'll remember we have budgeted 8% increase out of the gate for 2013. That's due to medical inflation, which I'm informed is in the range of 3 to 4%, and also based upon claims. 8% would be equal to about $410,000 a year for next fiscal year. And as you know, based upon what we've heard this evening, those monies are not necessarily available for health insurance or for anything else. What I've been informed with is that I've gone back and I've asked our consultant to investigate other options based upon some changes in our plan design. And I think it's critical that we begin pursuing those, and we have a discussion with our employees and our union groups that we're very honest and upfront that that's what we need to balance the budget this year.
Could you clarify this for me? The status quo renewal,
Status quo
that's
renewal
what we
is,
budgeted,
that's what we've budgeted, and that,
current revenue plan.
and that 8% figure that, Mr. Chairman, we discussed back in August,
Yeah.
it turns out to be very accurate.
Okay, so this is more than what we budgeted.
I'm sorry?
Yes?